That design was to become the world's first operational jet aircraft. What we're about to see is the first ever British display by a beautiful reproduction of this machine. And here it is on the whole. Just look at this, the Messerschmitt Me-262 from the Messerschmitt Foundation and Airbus Heritage. The aircraft made its maiden flight in partially jet-powered form in July 1942. It suffered a double failure of the BMW jets, however. Luckily, it still had a Umo piston engine up front. The first all-jet flight by a Me-262 took place on the 18th of July 1942. The Meteor, the Gloster Meteor, an example of which you can see here in the static display, courtesy of Martin Baker Aircraft, which was Britain's first operational jet fighter, that didn't take to the air until March 1943. Such was the lead that Germany had obtained. In Fritz first pass, the remarkable shape of the Me-262. And in April 1944, this incredible pioneering machine was able to enter Luftwaffe service with a unit called Erprobungskommando 262, a test and service trials unit stationed at Lechfurt in Bavaria. That August, it was renamed famously the Kommando Nowotny after its commanding officer, and it conducted the first ever missions in history by a jet fighter, scoring several air-to-air kills. Much has been made over the years of Hitler's edict that the Me-262 should be used not as an air-to-air fighter, but as a bomber. And so it was that another Luftwaffe unit, Kampfgeschwader 54, converted to become the first ground attack unit on the type. It proved fairly ineffective in that role, and it really didn't do a great deal for the overall operational effectiveness of the 262. Large-scale fighter missions by these aircraft against Allied bombers started in early 1945. Their speed was far in excess of the piston engine fighter opposition they were coming up with. The top speed of about 560 miles an hour. Compare that with the P-51D Mustang at 440 miles an hour. The very Me-262 was a good description of just what it was like for an Allied fighter pilot to come against a Me-262 in combat for the first time. Was provided a few years ago by a P-51 pilot veteran of the American 55th Fighter Group, Richard G. Gibbs.
I remember one time I was coming back from a bombing mission in the vicinity of Germany, all by myself for a reason. And I was about 30,000 feet, and I looked down there and I saw a 262 at about 20,000 feet going the other direction. So I thought, boy, this is a chance to get that jet. And I did a half roll, what they call a split S, which is whatever, 30 guys. He's shooting the red line of the airplane, trying to catch that jet, and he just pulled up in the vertical climb and disappears. I had no way I was ever going to catch him.
Still, there were insufficient Me-262s to make a material difference to the Luftwaffe's efforts. As the late naval test pilot, Captain Eric Winkle-Brown, pointed out, the 262 was no dogfighter, but it was an effective bomber-destroyer. Its radius of turn was never that great, but it could outrun all Allied fighters until the advent of the Gloster Meteor, and even then there were no jet-to-jet combat during the Second World War. The 262 in any case was faster than the Gloucester jet. A report by the Royal Aircraft Establishment, which evaluated captured 262s after the war, said this was down to the higher profile drag of the Meteor. Between their designs, that it was estimated that had a Meteor 3 been fitted with engines of the same thrust as the Me-262, it would still have been 20 miles an hour slower than the Messerschmitt. Against that, the Meteor's takeoff run was shorter and the aircraft more manoeuvrable.